Joining us now, former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, and he said that although Democrats went into the speech on Congress determined not to applaud, I think that's an understatement. He ended up winning them over, at least on a couple of issues. How did they not stand when the president says, we've got to create jobs? They didn't even stand for that, and I was laughing.
Oh, I think that they are in a, I'm not going to eat my spinach, and nothing you can do can make me eat my spinach, then I'm going to sit here and sulk. I think that was about it. You know, they basically had been told they had to go. And a lot of them were angry that Trump was standing there as president. A lot of them knew that their own base was watching and that, you know, if they were too positive about Trump, they were just going to have all sorts of problems.
It is amazing because, you know, you said something on TV last night that probably instinctively, maybe somebody, although I've never been a fan of Chuck Schumer. He's an angry, hard left partisan liberal. He's never shown a propensity like Bill Clinton to like the way Bill Clinton worked with you. The era of big government is over, the end of welfare as we know it. But, you know, I think now Democrats are so afraid of the loudest voices on the streets that they cannot ever be seen as helping in any way Donald Trump, and their goal now is to obstruct and slander and smear, and they even talk about impeachment with no cause at all.
Well, I think that the hostility on the left is legitimate. Donald Trump's not a normal, everyday, one more Republican president, nothing much is going to change, you know, we can all be friends, why don't we all go out and have dinner together? Donald J. Trump, as he himself indicated in the section that you just played, he sees himself as the vehicle for the will of the American people to profoundly change not just Washington, but all of the institutions of the left, which Washington has funded and empowered and strengthened. And so he represents the end of their way of life. And that's why you see this frenzy. I mean, he's the real deal. And, of course, what's beginning to become obvious is he's also a really smart guy who is learning very rapidly, and he's becoming more and more formidable every week.
Let me ask you, last night you said on television, and I was very fascinated with your interpretation because of, number one, you're a historian. Number two, you're a friend. Number three, you've been there. You were there with Reagan. You knew Carter. You knew Bush 41. You knew Bill Clinton and worked intimately with him and balanced, the budget for 4 years. You watched George W. Bush's presidency. You watched Obama's presidency. And now you have a whole theory and a whole dialogue that you're putting into book form about Trumpism. Historically, where did that speech fit in the scale? You've seen many of these before, and you sat behind presidents delivering those speeches.
Well, look, I think this was a very solid speech. It was very funny. He was on Fox and Friends yesterday morning, and he gave himself an A for effort and an A for achievement, but he said, I got to give myself a C or a C plus for communications. I don't think I've communicated very well. And I thought last night he took a big step forward, but I was talking with my daughter Jackie, who you know very well, Jackie Cushman in Atlanta, who's very good at this stuff. And she made the point that Reagan would have taken that speech and had about a 50% increase in impact because of his ability to deliver each sentence so powerfully. That the speech is a great speech. Trump is very authentic. He has come an enormous distance. But I think if he would allow himself to work a little bit with a couple of coaches on how you do the really big speeches, he could almost double his emotional impact. Now, I say this to somebody who thinks it was a very important speech. I think one of the most important speeches.
I think it was the best speech he ever gave in his career, and as a politician or even as a civilian, by far.
Well, by the way, that's what my newsletter is entitled today, that President Trump's best speech, but I put in capital letters, so far, because he's going to keep getting better. You watch.
Isn't it
keep getting better?
You and I have talked about this all throughout even the campaign, and there were people that were waiting to write your obituary in politics and my obituary on radio and television if Trump had lost. But we saw this side of him way before other people. I've known him for all these years. You've known him longer than anyone else as well. And I knew he had this capacity, but he's driven with a desire. I mean, one of the most profound things that he has said to me privately is, well, I promised the American people I've got to do a good job for them. It's like not an option to fail. And he has that businessman sense of urgency that, you know, I've always felt that pressure in my life, either working in restaurants or as a contractor or, to do a good show for my audience, be it radio or TV. You felt it as speaker. Some people don't have that. That is probably one of the most amazing qualities needed in a president. Urgency.
Well, I mean, what a lot of his enemies don't get is this guy is really sincere. I mean, he has the bombast and he has the tweets and he has this very large personality. But under it is a guy who is deeply patriotic, who desperately wants to do well by the country, who is getting bigger in his understanding. I mean, I've watched him over the last year, the degree to which he now includes African Americans and Latinos and people of all backgrounds. The concern he expressed over the 2 Indian Americans who were killed in Kansas City over the anti-Semitic attacks. I mean, he is really, really working to become worthy of being president of the whole country. That's a huge attainment. And I don't think people yet realize that if you have an entrepreneur with this level of talent, energy, and intelligence, and he really decides he wants to help everybody, he has enormous potential to do good.
If you look at, for example, what stood out in the speech to me was not only the delivery, which I thought was superb, and I don't think people realize what a skill it is to deliver a speech like that with a teleprompter. And I remember talking to him 2 days before he gave his APAC speech, and he wasn't sure he ever wanted to even use a teleprompter. I mean, that's how short a period of time he's come to master this thing. And then the content of keeping promises. I think the American people are so disappointed, and polls prove this, that Congress, Republicans, Democrats, all of them have not kept their word, that this is so imperative that he is reassuring everybody, both through actions and in his words, that this is his real intention. This is not a game. These are real proposals, and I've got to believe that Congress has to go along to get that job done.
Well, I think they will, but I also think it's going to require him to go to the country over and over again. I fully expect, and you and I talked about this a little bit on your show last night, as they begin to get a tax bill and as they begin to get the repeal of Obamacare and its replacement by a much better model, he is going to have to go out once again and have the kind of rallies that he's so good at. And he's going to have to pick key districts in the House and key states, and he's going to have to arouse people to understand what's at stake and to call their congressmen, call their senators. And it's going to take a fair amount of personal involvement by him.
Well, I think that has always worked for him, and certainly with the hostility we now see towards the media, with the media towards him, I think bypassing them every chance he gets is just the smart thing to do. But even they last night were compelled. Look, you've got a tough newsman. I mean, a guy that is hard on both sides. He's a colleague of mine, Chris Wallace, and I'm not just propping up Fox. He's a tough interviewer. And he says he became president last night. And Van Jones, Mr. Whitelash himself, he said Donald Trump became president last night. For those two harsh critics, CNN does a poll. 78% of Americans love the speech. Frank Luntz does a focus group. Almost everybody loved the speech, far exceeded expectations. I mean, it's amazing to see. I actually believe it's the office itself that has had a profound impact on changing him. There's something about being in that Oval Office and feeling the weight, the enormity of the task on your shoulders, that you're either sink or swim, and he seems to be swimming pretty well.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think he himself has said there was something very awesome about walking in the White House and realizing the history that's now on your shoulders, the fate of the country that's now on your shoulders. I also think that when you campaign as he does, with thousands and thousands and thousands of people, and when you like people as much as he does, that at some point it begins to really get to you that they're looking to you to be the real deal, and they're looking to you to really help their lives, and that they're counting on you. And so in a sense, his very strength begins to be a burden, because he begins to take seriously the idea that he owes it to them to do a great job for them and for America.
And that was the very sentiment that he expressed to me. I remember the first time it was with President Bush when I walked into that White House, that Oval Office in the White House. There's something about that place, the history. You just feel the presence of it all. And it's bigger than just even America. It's the free world. And you know it because you lived it, you experienced it, and you were, second in line to be president if, God forbid, anything had happened to the president during your lifetime and vice president during your lifetime while you were speaker. It is. What did that feel like for you as a student of history to be in that position?
Well, I think, my dad was a career soldier and served 27 years in the infantry. And he always felt the responsibility to defend America and to serve America. And I think as an Army brat, I grew into that kind of environment. So I always felt that first of all, that power was loaned to me. It was never given to me. It wasn't mine. It was the American people's. And when it was time for me to leave the speakership, I was very comfortable yielding back the power that had been loaned to me. I also felt that this is a country of human beings and that we have been blessed from George Washington on. Most of the time, not always. James Buchanan would be a terrible, tragic example of failure. But we've had probably 2 out of every 3 of our presidents have actually been pretty good and have actually risen to the occasion, as Harry Truman did, and become bigger in order to do the job. And I fully hoped that candidate Trump would experience that. And I have to say, in the first 2 months, I think President Trump has absolutely fulfilled the kind of hopes that you and I had when we first saw in him the potential to really turn America around and really get us back on track.
Well, we're in a precipitous decline. We need this change of direction quickly as possible, and that's where I hope Congress does their job. Mr. Speaker, I enjoyed seeing you last night, and as always, we love having you on, and I'm glad you're back for the vacation. Thanks so much for being with us.
I'm delighted to be back. I'll tell all your audience, you're not quite as much fun as penguins, but you're a very dear friend, and so I'm glad to be back and talk with you.
The picture of you on a kayak with penguins was funny. I got to take a break, though. Speaker, thank you.
Take care.